Greer said I was an intelligence asset.
What is he basing that on?
Nothing.
He's just fucking saying that you're an intelligence.
Yeah. I've never talked to the guy.
Yeah. And for the record, on record, you'll say you don't have a security clearance.
No, I don't have a security clearance. Yeah. I've never been in the military. I've never been in intelligence.
Yeah.
Graduated with a degree in engineering. There seemed to be a real shift when he gained that sort of popularity where Greer would really, really focus on the CE5 stuff, which can really rub people the wrong way. And I think that's really mostly due to kind of the monetary incentive around it. Like he's doing CE5 cruises.
And what is CE5 sort of summoning?
It's psionic stuff.
Psionic stuff. Yeah.
But I think a little more spiritual, like more focus on love and light.
Yep.
And Greer's also been busted for posting photos of like cactuses and stuff and saying they're entities.
Yeah, it's this mixed bag, and it's somewhat unfortunate. But you have to express your sort of gratitude to him, but then it's also like sometimes you wish it came in better form.
Yeah, because I've never spoken to Greer. I've never been in contact with him. I don't plan to, but I've been badmouthed by him. I know that.
What did he say about you?
So when Greer released his DPI archive, and I went through that and looked at all the accompanying files, because with each witness ID that's redacted, a lot of the time there's emails. I would look through these and I would say, like, why does Greer get to talk to these people and nobody else does? So I would spend weeks tracking people down and finding out who they were and contacting them. There've been multiple that I have, but at the tail end of 2024, there was a recent entry on the archive. This was a brand new person. This was the Army Public Affairs person that I talked about recently. I contacted this person. We struck up a relationship. This guy's an amazing person. But right when we started talking, he was suspicious of my motives, of course, because I reach out and I just said, hi, I found your name this way, this way, this way. Because whenever I reach out to somebody from the archive, I say, hey, this is where the breach of security happened. This is how I found your name. It will not be shared. I'm not interested in contacting anybody else. But so this guy and I started talking, and we hung up on the phone one day, and he called me back 10 minutes later. He said, I need to know what you're doing. I said, excuse me? He said, I just talked to Greer, and he said you're an intelligence asset. I said, what? So apparently this guy, when we hung up off the phone, he then contacted Greer because he was still in contact with Greer. And he gave Greer my full name, which I would prefer if he wouldn't have done that, but that's okay. And then Greer said I was an intelligence asset. So that's my one.
And then he said you were not an intelligence. He cleared it up. Or he said you were an intelligence
No,
asset.
Greer said I was an intelligence asset.
What is he basing that on?
Nothing.
He's just fucking saying that you're an intelligence.
Yeah. I've never talked to the guy.
Yeah. And for the record, on record, you'll say you don't have a security clearance.
No, I don't have a security clearance.
Yeah.
I've never been in the military. I've never been in intelligence.
Yeah.
Graduated with a degree in engineering, and I moved to
what do you do? Do you have like a day job, or is YouTube your full time?
Yeah, like mechanical engineering, service engineering. It's very boring. I'd like to move to this more full time because
for what can you say?
Medical devices, formerly renewable energy, like wind turbines and such.
Okay. Normal dude.
Yeah, normal dude. But that's been my.
But he's gonna have a massive channel and do this full time, and
I hope so. I mean, there's a lot of work in this subject that I think needs to be revisited, because as much as I hate to say it, and I'm sure you realize it as well, there has been elements of circular reporting in this subject.
Tons, and I'm sure, like, I've been guilty of it at times. Like, I don't think you can thoroughly investigate all of this stuff and it's all so crazy and weird. You're gonna get a little bit wrong along the way, and so like it's gonna be this dialectical process where you have to wade through the bullshit and just have open conversations. And I think as long as people think you're a good faith actor and you're like earnestly showing your thought process to everybody and you're like getting closer to an approximation of truth, that's all you can do.
Yeah.
And then just saying, like, admitting if you're wrong, and like if somebody comes at you with something substantive, just like accepting that and incorporating it into your worldview. And I think the other tricky thing is, like, people can say when you cover this topic that you are shilling a thing, and you can be grifting, which is absurd. Like I do have like a company that like encapsulates my show. I've never taken money out of the company. Like I've never like money has come in through like sponsors and that sort of thing, because I do want this to be sustainable. I have costs, and like I'm down to make money on it long term, but like what I was doing before was definitely more of a clear path to making like a lot of money than this. If anything, I've lost a lot of money over the last couple of years. It's kind of funny. Like, but yeah, I don't think you can do anything else other than like earnestly kind of move forward and just be humble and cool. And like people sense that. And
yeah,
you know,
I really, from what I try and do, I see a big gap in modern day in terms of investigating primarily legacy programs and witness testimony. Because historically, like wherever you look in this subject, Greer kind of has this pause in post like 1995, because even he is entwined in stuff like the Wilson Davis memo going back that far and so forth. And guys like really great researchers today, like Richard Dolan, he still focuses more on like sightings and kind of flaps and encounters and so forth. And what he does, he's almost the best at.
Totally. Well, that's the beautiful thing about this subject is I don't view it as zero sum at all. Like I actually think you're like best in the world now, and you will be like so much better there because how old are you? You're like
28.
You're 28.
Yeah, 28.
Yeah. So it's like you're like best in the world now, like tracking granular like legacy activity stuff. I think I'm really good on the theory side.
Absolutely.
Like you know, like consilience, interdomain consilience between like science and like theory and that sort of thing. And that's what I love. And then, you know, we have a buddy, Chris Ramsay, who has his YouTube channel, who like, to me, I think he's going to have like the biggest YouTube channel on this just because his like the thoughtfulness that he puts into like production and storytelling is just next level. And his skill set there is so good that he's going to open this topic up to like a whole new massive, you know, a swath of people. And I think we're all like pretty like, I don't know, we all have egos, but we're pretty like team players, like, you know? And so I love that. I think that's really cool. And it's going to be like a new era of this stuff where we can just like work together and like find the truth. And
it's
complement
really,
each other.
It's really refreshing because it's really refreshing to work together because I'm sure as like everybody who's done some research in this subject knows, like any sort of disclosure is not really going to come willingly, especially when it comes to UFO legacy program operations. So kind of working together and tackling cases and stuff like that is really brilliant to do. And Chris is a great guy. You introduced me to him at the hearings, and you know, the second he and I met, he and I were talking about Bob Lazar because he did the interview with Luigi from Project Gravatar.
Yep.
He spoke very highly of him, and
Luigi's super cool. I've talked to him. He's awesome. So this is this new documentary about Bob Lazar. Bob Lazar is obviously, if you've made it this far in the interview, you definitely know who Bob Lazar is.
Yeah,
but he is, you know, famous for having claimed to have, you know, reverse engineered UFOs at Area 51 S4, and you know, one of Rogan's biggest episodes. This wild controversy, some holes in his background, but like spoken to Luigi and Chris, and they've actually really helped me update my take on Bob Lazar to the point where I think he worked at Area 51 for sure.
Area 51 or S4?
I think he for sure worked at Area 51, probably worked at S4.
Okay.
And then I'm not sure that what he was shown wasn't shown to him deliberately, and he wasn't given high-level frameworks as sort of passage material and recruitment for legacy, which doesn't make covering his story invalid at all.
Right.
It makes it almost more interesting, but to me, it has to be covered through this like meta lens.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Well,
through the skepticism, but also like there's probably some real stuff.
Yeah.
Here.
I mean, I've historically stayed away from Bob because I'm so biased towards wanting to believe him.
Yeah.
You know, growing up, I would always hear about his testimony. I was the first to buy Area 51 or UFOs and Flying Saucers from Jeremy Corbell and his book Dreamland.
Yep.
The more I study other things, the more interest I find specifically not Bob Lazar reverse engineering the sports model propulsion systems or reading about the files of bodies and so forth, but specifically around the facility S4, which like I have good reason to believe that S4 south of or just southwest of Papoose mountain range, right by Papoose Lake, is a real place.
And what's your good reason to believe that?
So there's a couple public testimonies around it. There's that I don't really want to focus on, but like Dan Barish, Edgar Fouché, who claimed that S4 ran the Defense Advanced Research Center, the DARS, which was found in a ARPA document in the 70s to be proposed to exist, which was an underground facility, never really proven to exist. But I've talked to one person who has been to S4, and
Whoa.
another person who said they won't comment on if it exists. The person who had been to S4 said he didn't see anything like crazy or extraterrestrial. He was just went in the facility, but he did say some things that are similar to what Bob Lazar and others would say, meaning like colored pathways to show where you can walk and so
Yeah,
forth.
I think we should all wait for Luigi's documentary, Project Gravatar, because he's told me things offline that, out of respect for him, I'm not going to share. But that give me conviction that he did work at S4 around stuff that's gotten that will get corroborated in the documentary. So it's pretty cool. So yeah, I'm psyched. Chris has as well, and Chris is coming at this whole thing from an angle of like he's a famous magician before this, debunking other magicians, and so he comes at this whole thing through a more skeptical storytelling lens, and he thinks that there's definitely something to the Lazar story, and that he worked at S4.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, if that story is true, then that's one example of a deep underground military base with a hangar built into the side of a mountain, which is really interesting.